and they jump to conclusion. So that's it. We are on, guys. Good afternoon. The sun is still shining. It's a beautiful day out there. And this is a beautiful day for those that are Christians. Today we are here to celebrate Easter. This morning I was at Elko. We had communion there along with a message. Today, though, I want to go to Mark chapter 14. And I want to go from the time Jesus was arrested. Now, here's something you have to understand, guys. Every one of the epistles, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, every one of them have a little bit difference in them because they were all written by a different writer. So everybody views something a little bit differently. Okay? So to really get the full story from the time Jesus was arrested until he actually rose from the tomb this morning, you have to read all four verses, all four versions of the story. And it's very interesting to read it because you can see the differences in the writing of the writers, what the importance was thought of at the time from each writer, and you can go from there. By far the one with the most description is Luke, because Luke was trained a little bit different. He was trained as a physician. So he was trained to see the little details as they happened. So I'm going to be in Mark tonight. And we're going to go from there. We'll have some commentary as we go, but a lot of it's just going to be the reading of the Word. Mark 14, and we're going to start in 43. Jesus had just came out of the Garden of Gethsemane. He had been betrayed by Judas Iscariot. He got kissed on the cheek. That was a sign, the prearranged sign of the man that they were supposed to arrest. Now, Jesus was kind of upset with them because he asked them, he said, I've been in your temples teaching every day. Why didn't you do it there? Well, it was pretty obvious because the entire the population there would have went after him because Jesus was very well liked and he was the Son of God. But he also was doing all the miracles and helping people. And you'll see more of that later. Okay? I'm going to do a little fill-in as we go, though. Just as he was speaking, Judas, one of the 12, appeared. With him was a crowd armed with swords and clubs sent from the chief priests, the teachers of the law, and the elders. That was the Sanhedrin Council. Now, the betrayer had arranged a signal for them. The one I kiss is a man, arrest him and lead him away under guard. Going at once to Jesus, Judas said, Rabbi, and kissed him. The men seized Jesus and arrested him. Then one of those standing near drew his sword and struck the servant of the high priest, cutting off his ear. Am I leading a rebellion, said Jesus, that you have come out with swords and clubs to capture me? Every day I was with you, teaching in the temple courts, and you did not arrest me, but the scriptures must be fulfilled. Then everyone deserted him and fled. Here's a question. Who cut off the servant's ear? We believe it was Peter. Peter carried a sword, but I'm pretty sure a lot of others carried a sword too. Here's the thing. Even when Jesus was arrested, he still had compassion because he healed the ear of that servant. It was put back, completely healed. His compassion for others still carried, and it still carries today. Because I'm going to tell you guys, my Jesus is still alive. 53, they took Jesus to the high priest, and all the chief priests, elders, and teachers of the law came together. Now you got to remember now, this was Wednesday night. It was illegal for the council to gain to court after sunset. They had to have court during the day with the light, so nothing would be in the dark. Man, the followers of the law and the keepers of the law sure neglected that law, didn't they? Okay? The chief priests and the whole Sanhedrin were looking for evidence against Jesus so they could put him to death. But they did not find any. Man testified falsely against him, but their statements did not agree. I find this very interesting. Even though they had plotted this out for the false council, they still couldn't agree in it, even though they had all their testimony set up. Then some stood up and gave this false testimony against him. We heard him say, I will destroy this man-made temple, and in 3 days will build another, not made by man. Yet even their testimony did not agree. When did Jesus say that? He was talking to the 12. Wow, I wonder how they heard that then, huh? Then the high priest stood up before them and asked Jesus, are you not going to answer? What is this testimony these men are bringing against you? But Jesus remained silent and gave no answer. Prophecy, guys. Isaiah 53:7. One of my favorite ones. He was oppressed and afflicted, yet he did not open his mouth. He was led like a lamb to the slaughter. And as a sheep before the shearer is silent, so he did not open his mouth. Here's the thing. You will notice in all these writings, Jesus answers a direct question, not false allegations, but he answers a direct question each time. With the court, Sanhedrin, with Pilate, but allegations that were false, he would not answer. We're going to go on. And the high priest asked him, are you the Christ, the Son of the Blessed One? I am, Jesus said, and you will see the Son of Man sitting at the right hand of the Mighty One and coming on the clouds of heaven. The high priest tore his clothes. Why do we need any more witnesses? He asked. You have heard the blasphemy. What do you think? They all condemned him as worthy of death. Then some began to spit at him. They blindfolded him and struck him with their fists and said, prophecy. And the guards took him and beat him. Again, it was illegal for the Sanhedrin court to meet after dark. Yet here they were, sometime late at night. They had the nerve. They put a blindfold on Jesus and they beat him. Then they turned him over to the guards of the temple and they beat him. and their plot thickened. We're not going to go into Peter right now, but their plot thickened. I'm pretty sure, this is my speculation here, guys. Take it for what it's worth, which is nothing. It's just my speculation. I'm pretty sure they had this all worked out, because what was their next step? 15, very early in the morning, the chief priests and the elders of the teachers of the law and the whole Sanhedrin reached a decision. They bound Jesus, led him away, and headed him over to Pilate. Now, what was the one thing that the Roman Empire would not put up with? And that is civil unrest. Do you think they went to Pilate and just kind of told him, hey, you either go along with this or there'll be an uprising? As we read on, they were trying to get an uprising. And Pilate was trying to do his best to get out of it. Okay? Verse 2. Are you the king of the Jews? Asked Pilate. Yes, it is as you say, Jesus replied. The chief priests accused him of many things. So again, Pilate asked him, aren't you going to answer? See how many things they are accusing you of? But Jesus still made no reply, and Pilate was amazed. Have you ever noticed something? People that are normally innocent of a crime in court are normally pretty calm, and they answer the questions. The people that are the guiltiest are the ones that are sitting there screaming and yelling and say, I didn't do it. Jesus was completely calm. And I want you to think about this, guys. Jesus knew what had to be done. He knew it, but yet he still went through with it. In the garden, he asked God to pass this hour away from him. But what was it he said? But not my will, but thine. In other words, God, I'm going to follow you all the way to death if this is what it takes to make mankind right again. And it's a choice. We're going to go on. Now it was the custom at the feast to release a prisoner from the people that the people requested. A man called Barabbas was in prison with the insurrectionist who had committed murder in the uprising. The crowd came up and asked Pilate to do for them what he usually did. In other words, release a prisoner on the grounds of mercy. Do you want me to release to you the king of the Jews? Asked Pilate, knowing it was out of envy that the chief priests had handed Jesus over to him. But the chief priests stirred up the crowd to have Pilate release Barabbas instead. Have you ever thought about that? I've been reading up on this, and I've been following this, and I've been studying, and I'm telling you, the priests were scared of Christ because he was taking away their livelihood, their power. They were corrupt because they did not want to give up that seat of honor that they had put themselves in, not God. God didn't put them in that seat. They put themselves in that seat of honor. That's why they showed off a lot. What shall I do then with this one you call the king of the Jews? Pilate asked him. Crucified him, they shouted. Why? What crime has he committed? Asked Pilate. But they shouted all the louder, crucify him. Wanting to satisfy the crowd, key there, Pilate released Barabbas to them and had Jesus flogged and handed him over to be crucified. This was only the beginning of the troubles that Christ went through. He was beaten by the temple guard. He was beaten by the Sanhedrin. And then he was flogged. In other words, he was whipped by the Roman guard. And guys, if you didn't understand this, when they did it, it was 39 lashes of a cat of nine tails that had razors in the end of it, and they thought 40 lashes would kill a man, and it probably would. But they ripped him open.